disaster on American soil, the act of violence, was the Oklahoma bombing. 171 people, we had a moment of silence for them. Who tied a ribbon off of the 300 that died in Tulsa? How come we didn't know that? Either they didn't count as human, or they were trying to run from the dissonance. So what we have to understand is, how long then have we been free? 38, 39 years? But y'all are free. You see, yeah, but Joy, that was a long time ago. Surely you don't think that we now possess the behaviors or any... Well, let's take a look at that. And I'm going to share with you some of those behaviors, because, you know, it's called adaptation. It's learning to adapt to living in a hostile environment. We have normalized, we in this room have normalized our injury to such a degree that, and of course, white people have a disincentive for us to look at it, because then they got to look in the mirror. And so let's take a look at what it might look like up close and personal with you and I. Because, you know, we learn from the generation that precedes us. One of the things that I learned to do is I learned to cook at my mother's side. You know how we were talking about that the other night. We had the blessing of being in the home of Brenda Ross and her husband John, and they cooked a real meal. They laid it out for us, and she was talking about how she made those apple dumplings, and her daughter goes, "Well, did you write the recipe down?" She said, "Ain't no recipe." You know, and that's how it goes, you know, because you learn that way. Well, my mother, when I would, you know, go out and I would learn to cook, my mother, you know, I'd go out and I'd go grocery shopping with her, and, you know, and I noticed that whenever my mother came to the point where she was going to buy tomatoes, she'd only buy 4. I don't know, just 4 tomatoes. To this day, I can't get a 5th one in the bag. Can't do it. I've tried, can't do it. You just simply don't need more than 4. My husband, I said, you know, Ray, could you go to get some tomatoes? He came back, a whole bag of tomatoes. I go, oh my God, that's a whole lot of tomatoes you brought back. He said, well, didn't you say we needed tomatoes? I said, yeah, but we don't need that many. He said, well, how many we need? I said, about 4. We need about 4. Now, that's innocuous. That's not going to hurt anybody whether I buy, you know, 4 tomatoes or not. But there are other things that we've adapted to. They're not innocuous. When we began, I had a woman say to me, and it really crushed me. Actually, it was a young man that talked about his mother. And it was a camp, a basketball camp. And I was working with black male athletes, and I was talking about responsibility, relationship, and sexuality. And when I was talking to this one young brother, he said to me, and let me just kind of describe him. This brother is coal black, smooth, blemish-free, hope to die, drop dead. Beautiful brother. And he said to me, well, you know, my mama told me, don't you ever bring home nothing black as you. That's what she had said to him. And when he looked at me and saw the horror in my eyes, he said, oh, but I could bring home someone like you. And I said, brother, you've not complimented me there, but I can only imagine his hurt from his mother who looked like him and what he reminded her of. So I began to look at that, and I started to look at the behaviors that were exhibited by African Americans that are part of what I call post-traumatic slave syndrome, and that's one of them. Of course, our obsession with skin color and hair texture and all that foolishness, which is coming out in the hip-hop rap, so it ain't gone nowhere. Okay, so let's be clear, we are still living with that. Hence the term natural hair. I had people say to me, you're going natural, huh? As if I was doing something odd. I actually had a white person respond to that and say, yes, well, my wife goes through the same thing. You know, she wears her gray. I go, he don't get it. I'm not talking about wearing your gray. I'm talking about wearing your hair, stay with me, the way it grow out your head. Created a whole new industry on how to care for the hair that grow out your head, because we don't know how to do it anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, because I think black people are some of the most versatile and beautiful people in the world. We can dye it, shave it, lock it, perm it, braid it, roll it, do whatever we want with it. I ain't at you, but please don't have a problem with how it grow out your head. And evidence of that is the natural hair products that are coming. Oh, and you know, white people are selling it to us. To figure out how they can now market, because they marketed how you couldn't deal with the way the hair grew out your head, and sold that to you, and now they're selling to you how to take care of your hair that grows out your head. And then we look at each other as though we're making a statement because we wear our hair the way it grows out of our heads. There's something wrong with that. That's post-traumatic slave syndrome. Okay, so now let's move to something a little more intense and more serious. When I was in Southern Africa, one of the things that I marveled at was the children. I marveled because these children were so tall. Dirt poor, tall, taller than anybody African American I had met, because they were clear about who they were. They were clear. They may not be clear about some other things, but they were clear about being black and being all right with that. And I could see it. I could feel it with them. And one of the things that I noticed that happened to me is when I got to South Africa, I cried. I wept constantly. I would weep because I was so moved by what I had lost, I thought. Now, in Southern Africa, you know, in different parts of Africa, like you have people who dance, folks that sing. Folks sing in Southern Africa. And they really sing. And they sing when you cry. Like when you cry, nobody goes and runs and gets a tissue. They just silent, 4-part harmony. They start singing, right? And this was it was overwhelming. I was there, like, again, with 8 other African-American women. We were overjoyed at this melodious response to my tears until they would all stop and then turn to us and say, offer a few songs to us. Now, contrary to popular opinion, we can't all sing. And y'all know that because y'all got the Apollo. And we know what we do with folks that can't sing. Okay? So the women would look over at me because they wasn't interested in singing. Now, we did end up with some pretty nice, luckily there were a few women that could sing, and we ended up on the radio, if you want to know the truth. We really got into singing. But the women got a little upset with me. And so they met without me when we were on our way to Lesotho. And they got up early that morning, they met without me, and when I woke up, they said, Joy, we've met, and we've talked, and you know, as you know, today we are going to Lesotho. And Joy, we're not singing when we get to Lesotho. So whatever it is you got to do with yourself, to get yourself together so that you don't cry, you need to do that. Okay? Because we are not singing in Lesotho. Okay. So I said, I'm good. I'm good. I can handle this. You know, I'm good. So we get to Lesotho, and they have invited people from all over, people from the villages. You have political figures, you have educators, you have all these important people, and you have village people with different languages. They all show up. And in Africa, you know how we are about greeting. You know how black people are about greeting. You know, hey, how you doing? Hey, listen. Well, you know, when you're with white people,